Well, as many of us continue to enjoy the early access edition to FM24, some of you are now looking ahead to the full release and main saves that you can try. As a result of that, I'm going to try and help you out by giving you 3 save ideas from the lowest playable leagues in English football. The Vanarama National League North and South are stacked with teams that could make a great challenge for this year, so I'm going to give you a few contenders from the top and the bottom end of the league and show you why they might be the team for you to take on. If you're looking forward to that, then please do put a thumbs up on the video. I hope you've been enjoying the early access, and thank you for the incredible support on both of the stories on this channel. The long-term saves continue. You can find them both in the eye above. But for now, let's go and get straight on to our number 3 pick for our National League North and South teams that you might want to give a go. We start at number 3 with the favourites for the National League North. Now, the reason I've gone for them in 3rd place rather than higher up, and particularly when you consider my number 1 later on, is purely because in-game they're quite heavy favourites to win the league. Scunthorpe United are a mainstay of the EFL, certainly from my childhood and probably for many of your lifetimes as well. They fell out of the Football League in 2022 and unfortunately, after being riddled with off-the-pitch problems, they continued to spiral out of control last year. Relegated at the first attempt from the National League, making it successive relegations to the National League North, Scunthorpe have now got a rebuilding job on their hands. And it hasn't been without drama so far either. In real life, off-the-pitch chaos as well, as a relatively new owner said he was going to stop funding the club. An internal takeover has since taken place and the club is now on semi-steady footing again. But it is going to be important, certainly in the FM world, that you take advantage of your squad first season. Because if you don't win a promotion, the wage bill is going to cripple you at this level. And you may find yourself getting dragged back to semi-professional, which would be a blow, given your professional status is one of your advantages at the moment. They've got good facilities and of course at this level, they've got a fairly big stadium. The infrastructure is there for the club to return to the EFL, but the squad you've got at the moment, well, it kind of depends on the style of play you like, because Scunthorpe have got a lot of experienced players in this year's FM, a few to pick out that are most notable. Jacob Butterfield, a former player at Warrington Town, my club, but also across the EFL. At 33, he's not going to offer you a huge amount of acceleration or dynamism in midfield, but technically and mentally, you're probably not going to get much better at this level. So someone who can pass the ball around, a rare chance for you to perhaps try and control possession in the National League North. It could be a really interesting save to take on. You've got an age in defence, you've got a couple of experienced target men up front, but you have also got a little bit of stardust as well. Connor Smith, a young player on loan from Hearts, a really high quality player. And in that number 10 role again, if you do want to control possession, pack the midfield, you're going to have someone who's got that technical ability, but in addition this time to a bit of physical prowess as well. And on the same note, let's look at Cal Roberts, a player who 2 years ago was starring with Notts County at National League level. He is out injured for the first half of the season here, but it's an incredible coup for him to be tempted to the National League North. The problem with him and many of the others of you've seen, they're on over £1,000 a week and many of them on 2-year deals as well. So if you don't get promoted first season, financially, you could find a mess. The overall challenge though with Scunthorpe is simple. Around 15 years ago, they were playing in a championship. They had a proud selection of good young players coming through, most notably Andy Keogh and Gary Hooper. In addition to that, they played my side Luton Town at Wembley in a Johnston Paint Trophy final in 2009. But it has since gone very wrong for Scunthorpe, and after a couple of years of struggle, 2 successive relegations have made it difficult. Your job is to bounce back with a promotion at the first attempt, but can you get them back to the EFL in 2 seasons at the same rate they've dropped down from League 2? At number 2, we've gone for a side at the other end of the division, because I didn't just want to pick the 3 big obvious sides across the 2 divisions, but we're staying in the National League North at number 2, as we head to Warrington Town, who were promoted to the National League North for the first time in their history last season, and they've got a pretty interesting squad. In-game, the reason I find them so enticing is they're one of the favourites for relegation, as you can see. They're a semi-pro side, they've got very basic facilities compared to a lot of the division, and quite a small stadium. However, there is interest when you go and look at the team, and a few people who have managed recently in the lower leagues, or maybe even in the championship, will be quite surprised by some of the names at Warrington Town. Because we have a look at the players they've got at the moment. Yes, you haven't got the infrastructure that you would start with at Scunthorpe or my number 1 pick, but you have got arguably the best player that any of the 3 teams have. because on non-contract terms, at just the age of 30, you have got Andre Wisdom, who has not had a downgrade in stats. He has still got League One level attributes at worst, and of course as recently as 2021 was playing for Derby in the Championship. He's a very good player, and as you can see, is far too good for non-league in this game. Whether or not you can take advantage of that is a different question. However, the former under-21 England international is one of several good attacking threats from set pieces, and with over 6-foot players who've got a great jumping reach, you might well have an opportunity to take advantage here. So Andre Wisdom is one of a number, and you are going to have to play a slightly different tactic here because it is a very old squad in defensive areas, but there are other names that stand out as well. Former Blackpool and Tranmere defender Peter Clark, another one at 41 who is well over the hill physically, and as you can see, is very slow. Maybe you partner him with Wisdom who can drop off. But there's plenty of advantages to this guy too, who is also a former England under-21 international. He's a leader, he's determined, he's got a professional personality, might be great for mentoring groups if you bring young players in alongside them, and also, of course, still has that jumping reach, and at 6'2" will be another big set-piece threat. Moving through the team, there are other familiar names, including a few that are a bit nostalgic for me. One of my favourite FM saves relied on this guy a number of years ago. He used to be a very well-rated youngster in Football Manager back in sort of FM17-18 era, and he's a really good winger still. Can give you a threat and, of course, attacking pace at this level. A couple of good target men at 6'2" and 3 as well. This side is built to play direct and to play on the counter-attack, and if you take advantage of it, with Warrington Town, I don't think you'll be worrying about relegation. I think you'll be looking at springing a surprise, and at the top level, there's definitely room to make it into those playoffs. A really good selection of experienced players, and if you can pick up 3 or 4 young stars released by senior clubs in the first season, you might well be on your way to stardom with Warrington Town. Of course, you've got more building to do off the pitch, but on it, you might arguably be in surprisingly strong hands. Well, at number 1, we moved to the National League South, and there were a couple of contenders here. I thought about Aveley, who have started so well in real life despite being relegation favourites in FM, but of course, at the top, it is the battle of the two Southwest clubs, Torquay United and Yeovil Town. Now, Torquay have been at this level as recently as 2019, which is why I didn't pick them. I did do a long-term story with them all the way back then. But for Yeovil, the fall from grace has been a bit more dramatic. In the Championship as recently as the early 2010s, with Gary Johnson, now Torquay manager, taking them beyond any heights that were expected. But for Yeovil, the fall has been dramatic since then. Problems off the pitch last season, poor managerial appointments and poor recruitment led to a very disappointing year and a gradual tumble down the table. And in the end, Yeovil were relegated to the National League South and will start the season in the 6th tier of English football. However, despite the fall back down the divisions now, you have got some advantages again that Scunthorpe have in the north. Despite being second favourites to rivals Torquay, Yeovil are actually top in real life and have a very decent squad. They've also got a culture item to develop youth players, and if you can take advantage of decent training facilities for this level, you might be able to develop a few from within the club. You've also obviously got a relatively big stadium for this level and the professional setup, which we mentioned with Scunthorpe. But let's have a look at the Yeovil side, where currently Mark Cooper is top of the league. A couple of loan players have been added to the squad in key areas, and taking advantage of links to clubs like Bristol City, where versatile young players could be important. But you've also got a little bit of experience that might be able to help you. In attacking areas, you should have goals galore. Jake Hyde, a man who was scoring goals for fun in the National League before he was moved on to Wrexham for big money. A very good target man at this level. And Reece Murphy. Does anyone remember back to the 2000s FMs where he was a young superstar at Arsenal that always made it as a Premier League player? Well, here he is. He's still declining a bit physically now. He's a goal scorer, and if you get him as a poacher, I'm sure he'll score you 20 in a season. If that wasn't enough, you've also got the likes of Frank Noble, who is an experienced player that can offer quality and physicality at this level. A little bit of a flair player there too. Jordan Maguire-Grew is another that scored plenty of goals at National League level and was involved in Grimsby Town's promotion back to the Football League a couple of years ago. And then more defensively, you've got the likes of Michael Smith, a man with 17 caps for Northern Ireland, who'd been playing for Hearts in Europe last year. He's still very much an EFL standard player in game, and on £1.5 a week, you have got to be wary of the same fate as Scunthorpe. A very tight title race expected with Torquay, but if you don't get promoted here, you are going to be in financial ruin because there is a lot of money being spent on wages and almost all on experienced players too. The good news is, bar Maguire Drew, most of the bigger earners are on 1 year deals, so you shouldn't have too much of a longer term effect. However, if you don't go up in the first season, there is a chance your squad will be weaker for the second. Yeovil Town, an interesting challenge, purely because it should be a very tight title race. To give you a little bit of context, we will quickly look at Torquay. They are the favourites, they've got better facilities off the pitch, and they've got their fair share of experience too. The likes of Dean Moxey and Kevin Dawson, Asa Hall, another former Luton man, all offering plenty for them at this level as well. So it should be a bit more interesting at the top if you take on this one rather than the Scunthorpe one. But that's why I've edged Yeovil at number 1, my top 3 bottom playable league challenges in England. So those are my top 3 choices. If you are planning to start a Road to Glory style save in FM24 from the lowest playable league, there are plenty of other options I've missed out. But who will you be planning to take on from the full release? If you've already started your main stories like me, let me know down in the comments who you're managing. Or if not, do you plan on managing any of these 3? Or have you got another team in mind for FM24? If you did enjoy this one, please do put a thumbs up on the video. We'll be returning to normal service later, and tomorrow the head coach will continue and be back at 3:30 before we return with our new season as Southend United tomorrow morning. I hope you're looking forward to both of those. You can find the playlist so far up in the eye above. There are some other FM24 save idea videos there too, in addition to the Twitch channel and the football podcast. But thank you very much for watching. Your support is greatly appreciated. And I'll see you back here later as the head coach resumes.